last month. We didn't get it recorded. This time it is being recorded. Everybody will get the replay. I've known Ronnie for years. Gosh, it's been almost 20 years, probably 19 years now, 18, 19.
Yes, it is 19 years.
Yeah, I met her through a networking meeting she was having at her office, and we connected right away. We really clicked. She's spoken in Denver with us. She's spoken in Seattle with us in person, and at a whole bunch of the I Take the Lead meetings down in the Portland area as well. So I am excited to have her come and share networking for newbies. And even if you've been networking for years and years, you'll get some tips out of this. I promise. Ronnie is just awesome. So Ronnie, I'll let you take it from here.
Becky, thank you so much. I am really excited to be here, and I'm going to share my screen. I have got I've got some slides, and I think a lot of times people find it easier to tell what I'm saying by looking at the slides. So, and also, as Becky was saying, if you've got a question, please do post it in the chat, because she is going to interrupt me, and I want to make sure I get all of your questions answered. Although, as you can see by our little agenda, we're going to cover a lot. And Becky, once again, I am so excited to be sharing my ideas about networking with the I Take the Lead community. And I think that everyone's really going to like what I've got prepared for you. So I'm going to start off, though, with how to get the most out of today's training, because we have limited time, Natch, and I want to deliver the value that everybody expects. And also, I encourage you to please stay until the end, because I've got some wonderful bonuses. I'll even give you a sneak peek at them that are free, that will help even the most experienced networkers get more from their networking. But more about that later. First, let's take a look at my success tips for making the most of our time together on this webinar. Number one is ask questions, because if you have an idea or some information that is missing, that means you probably won't implement it. And all of these ideas are only as good as the implementation. So please just pop it into the chat, and don't worry about interrupting me, because I'm not even looking at the chat. As a matter of fact, I've closed the chat, so you will not be interrupting me, and you will give Becky plenty of fun things to do by posting your question. Also, if you have a question, I suggest that you write it down, either type it or write it on a piece of paper so that you don't forget. All right. The second thing is to crush those ants, or what I call those automatic negative thoughts, because you might be thinking something like, oh, I don't like that, or that's not right for me, or I couldn't do that. But please don't get bogged down in the details. I want you to just kind of take it all in, and then you can pick and choose what's going to work for you later. But I don't want you to put up any barriers as we're beginning. I just want you to let the ideas flow in. So when those ants pop up, just kind of crush them. And third, of course, is to take notes. And the reason I suggest you take notes is because it helps you focus, it helps you stay on track, and also it helps you identify the ideas that you'll hear today that you want to implement in your own networking. So you can download the guided notes from Becky's reminder email. They're not in the chat though, are they? So guided notes, super helpful, I think. And as a matter of fact, here's what they look like. So in case you haven't already got them, it's just a very simple 3-page thing. And I really like to write them out and to print them out and write on them, because I'm both a visual person and a kinetic person. So I want to get involved with the information. You don't have to write it out if you don't want to. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to pop a link in the chat. And this is a tool that I use all the time. It's called PDF 24. And what you can do is just upload the PDF file, and you can just type your notes directly in it and then download your notes afterwards. It's really super handy, and I strongly recommend that if you're not a handwriter. So without further ado, let's get started. Now, since we're talking about networking for newbies, let's start at the very beginning with the definition. So what is networking? But first, I think it might be helpful to talk about what networking isn't, because it's not what a lot of people think. I mean, it is not selling. It's not a recruitment opportunity. It's not a pitch opportunity. It's not a job interview. It's not a monologue. And it's not only about you. No, my friends, networking is connecting to serve, share, and support. And if you're at all familiar with the way the internet and computers work when you're networking them, it's the same thing: serving, sharing, support. It isn't about one-way communication. It isn't about blasting people with sales information. It's about making connections. And that's something that's extremely important to remember. It is not selling, as my friend Becky says. And an aspect of this networking is connecting to serve, share, and support is to remember that you are creating, the second half of this, creating mutually beneficial relationships. Because the truth is, you may never be able to buy from or refer to some of your very best networking partners that you meet, but there are many other ways to make that relationship helpful and supportive. And if you start being too, start being too worried about taking rather than giving, then I think you'll find yourself on the wrong side of networking, and you'll never really reap the true benefits of networking. So networking, though, and I want to make this super clear, is way more than just showing up and passing out business cards. It is a marketing strategy that can build your reputation, create a referral network, and generate consistent leads. So rather than doing just a bunch of rando stuff that people think are networking, glad handing, spraying business cards all over the place, I encourage you to take networking seriously. And that starts with choosing the right networking strategies, the basics of which we're going to cover today. And in addition to the right strategies, there are a few tools that can make a significant difference in your networking experience. And I'll be sharing some of those tools today. And finally, bottom line, your attitude. So there are 3 things that you need for networking success: the right strategies, the right tools, and the right attitude. And today we're going to go deeper into the essential tools and strategies in just a moment. But I want to address the attitude thing right now, because the wrong attitude is what I consider the absolute greatest mistake in networking. The right attitude is giving without the expectation of receiving. But what's going on with my slides here? But the greatest mistake in networking is the opposite. So what does that look like exactly? Well, you can make a lot of mistakes, but still have the right attitude, and people can forgive that. But if you've got the wrong attitude, that's the worst. And the greatest mistake in networking is to treat it as a transaction instead of a relationship. So if you go networking expecting to make a sale, expecting to be handed referrals, and to receive as much as you give in the same way, you're thinking transactionally. And networking, like karma, doesn't work that way. So the worst example of that is someone who goes to a networking meeting with a sales agenda instead of a connection agenda. Because as Becky so famously says, networking is not selling, and she is so right. So treating networking like a sales transaction is a surefire way to get a bad reputation, to actually suppress referrals, and to never get the benefits of connection, because you never know what's going to happen out there. Because referrals aren't the only outcome of networking. When you network, you'll become better known, liked, and trusted than when you just kind of show up, again, spew out some business cards and see what's in it for you. I recommend that you network with an attitude of service and connection. And this magnetizes opportunity, things like joint ventures and speaking gigs and more referrals and all sorts of things. And I can tell you from my own personal experience, if I didn't network, I wouldn't have a business. I mean, this is where business comes from. Most coaches, I'm sure many of you know coaches, and I have been a coach now for 23 years. Most coaches do not make it past year 4. Most coaches never fully replace their corporate income and make it full time. And that is something I have been doing for 23 years steadily, and I truly owe it all to networking. Now, I do another class with Becky, and I take the lead, called How to Build Your Business with Networking, where I explain the exact strategy and tools that I use to do that. I kickstarted my business in 6 weeks. It's exhausting, but it really and truly works. Becky's laughing, and so is Lynn. You guys know what I'm talking about.
Oh,
But
yeah.
and I started as a complete and total newbie. I learned all of these things the hard way. So if you hear me telling a story about something, chances are that story is about me and all the mistakes I made. I don't want to, I don't rat out as many people these days as I used to. So let's, yeah. And Lynn, Becky, if you want to chime in and share at any point, just let me know.
Will do. I'd say what you're talking about there. When I
Mhm.
started networking, my first thought was, I have nothing to offer. I don't know anything about this.
Mhm.
And it's not until you get into it, you realize, oh, this is kind of fun.
Exactly. I think networking is a really fun thing because truly it's all about making relationships. And even though I'm a very hardcore introvert, I look at it this way. I am making business friends. And it's going to take a while, and I don't mind because there isn't a forced intimacy here. It's the process of meeting people over and over, again, learning about them, respecting them, and then seeing how we can be of service, seeing how we can be useful to other people. And as Lynn says, most of us go in there thinking, I don't have anything to offer. And but we always do. And if nothing else, you can offer your presence, your acknowledgement, and your moral support, which is huge, especially for networking. All right, so let's move ahead and let's talk about these 9 essential strategies or tools of networking. So now is a really good time to start taking notes if you haven't already, because as I mentioned, writing this stuff down, even if you never look at it again after today, is going to help you remember it and also help you implement some of these tools. And there's a lot of stuff, so I'm just going to go right into it. So the first essential strategy is to show up at the right place. Now, bear in mind that the right place for you might not be the right place for other people. So a short list would be, networking groups, leads groups, like I Take the Lead. It could be industry association groups, local chambers, and so on. The truth is, though, that you can network pretty much anywhere in groups as well as one-on-one. I prefer to get to the one-on-one as soon as possible because that's where I'm more comfortable. And to be honest, I've actually done networking in a swimming pool. And I've told that story in one of my classes before. But my strong recommendation, though, if you really are a newbie and you're just getting started with networking, yes, skip the swimming pool and start at 2 places. Number 1 is going to be your local leads group. And I strongly recommend I Take the Lead, not only because of their reputation and because of the people, but because of their great policies and the number of meetings that they have. Now, the truth about I Take the Lead is they have smaller meetings than, say, something. I hope you can forgive me for talking about competitors. But for something like LaTip or BNI have these like 40-person meetings, it can be really difficult to become, at least I have noticed, to be heard or seen or remembered in a gigantic group like that. And that's great, maybe, once a quarter. But on a weekly basis, I think a smaller group is better. And that's what I really like about I Take the Lead. They have more groups and smaller groups. So that works better for me. And Becky, I apologize if I should have asked you about that.
No, I agree. I think it's an advantage.
Good.
I really do. So, yeah.
Yeah, when I gave them a testimony that's on the website, I talked specifically about other groups.
Oh, okay then. I'm in good
Or I
company.
have, and why I like this group better.
Good. Thank you, Lynn. Okay. Whew. All right. So this is where I would recommend being able to get up to speed in the business community the fastest is to join a group like I Take the Lead. And if you don't have an industry association, a local chamber or business association works really well. And I recommend not to go nuts and spend all of your time showing up at all these networking meetings. is meeting people for the first time is only the first step and only part of the networking process. And we're going to cover some of those details today. But the first thing, though, is to show up at the right place. And I've noticed that a lot of people show up at what they think is the right place, but they never go back to the same place twice because they think they haven't sold anything. You know, I didn't get any new customers, so I shouldn't go back and network. You're not there to sell. You're not there to get customers. You're there to create connections. You're there to build a reputation. You're there to establish relationships. And that's where you're there to find partners. And that's where the business is really going to come from. So you want to show up at the right place. For everybody, it is different. But there are, like I say, a couple of types of places that I strongly recommend. The second place is to meet the right people. Now, it's not that there are wrong people per se, but there are right people. Or as you can see in this graphic that I've got, people that are kind of your target. And I don't even mean your target market. So this can get really confusing. You're going to meet a lot of people at events, whether they're virtual events or on-site events. And the key is to understand where the value for you is. And for most of us, when we're new, we assume that the highest value connection that we can make at a networking meeting is who else is a prospect. Actually, it is not the highest value, because you're going to meet a lot of different types of people. And the problem with prospects is this: who here ever went to a networking meeting ready to whip out that credit card and make a purchase? Okay, now once in a while, I will admit it, someone's going to bring their kids Girl Scout cookies.
Yeah.
I'm willing to put down some money for that. But when somebody walks up to me and is trying to sell me their product or their service or their information or experience at a networking meeting, I've just met them. I don't want to listen to a pitch. I'm not there for a sales meeting. I'm there to get connected. So I am not ready to be pitched to. So I have to assume, is there anybody else who's like that here? So can you just, Becky, will you watch the chat for me? I would like,
Oh, sure.
if anybody doesn't want to be pitched, when they go to a networking meeting, can you please write "not me" in the chat?
Not me, and I have a lot.
Not me. Oh, wow. There's a bunch of them.
I think we can take care of your problem if we follow up email.
Exactly.
I think we can cure you.
Yeah, well, see, and this is how people look at their when people are generally organizing their the people that they're going to be meeting. They're like, okay, I'm going to meet my prospects. I'm going to meet my peers and potential power partners and potential vendors and organizations. And I really just want to focus on the prospects. And the sad truth is you don't really want to. And you might be surprised who you should be focusing on, not the prospects. They're not there to buy either, but your peers, and I'll tell you why in a minute, and your potential power partners. Now, who's a power partner? A power partner is someone who also sells to your ideal client. Now, they're probably in a complementary business. So for example, if you're a realtor, we're probably talking mortgage brokers or someone like that. So somebody who will also work with your client either before, during, or after the time that you are working with them, but not a competitive relationship. And so what you're looking for is people who have clients that you can help. I hope that makes sense. Now let's talk about your peers. A lot of times people think that peers are competition. And wow, there is a lot of noise on the line. Anyone else noticing that?
Yeah. It was.
Okay, we got that. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. So you might think, so peers is someone either who's doing the same thing, or you might consider them a competitor. You'll see, I don't put competitors on this list because I consider them more in the realm of peers. But here's the interesting thing. So if you have a good relationship with a peer, then they may be able to refer business that is not right for them. And then you can also refer business that is not right for you. Now, as I mentioned before, and as I'm sure you all know by now, I'm a coach. I'm a marketing coach real specifically. And sometimes people have come to me for coaching, and I've been very disappointed that I haven't been able to help them because I don't do, for example, job search coaching or college coaching or relationship coaching or all these other sorts of coaching that people think, well, she's a coach, she can do it. And so I have a ton of other coaches, peers of mine, some might even say competitors that I refer business to. And it's been really helpful to me because that way the client isn't disappointed or the prospect isn't disappointed and feeling rejected. But it also opens the door for my peer to refer business back to me, because nobody wants to get a reputation for being bad at what they do. And that's why, I stay in my lane and I push business to other people as often as I can. And what's really cool about that is I've literally gotten reviews from people. I've said, you know what, I'm not the right coach for you. Let me introduce you to someone else who's really going to make you happy. I just can't make it happen for you. And those people have actually given me good reviews. So you are creating this social equity by being super honest with yourself and with your prospects, excuse me, and knowing who to refer. As a professional, you would know who to refer to someone else. So we've got potential power partners and peers, and also that I mentioned, every once in a while, you may have a capacity issue, and maybe you don't want to hire someone for good, but you need someone to help you with a project or just for a short time. It's really great having a network of peers that you trust and that you've referred business to, because those are the sort of people that can do a JV or come in and help you with projects if needed. So these are two of the most useful people to have in your network and to develop good working relationships with, because they can send you an endless stream of business. They never have to buy from you, ever. And you never have to buy from them, ever. But when you work together and you share clients, you can create a great relationship and better outcomes for your clients. Okay, so there's a lot more to talk about, because there are some other sorts of people that you meet, and I would like to talk about these other types of people. If you have a specific question, please do ask. But the point I'm trying to make here is focus on those two types of people you're meeting: the potential power partners, the people who work with your own clients, and who would also benefit your clients by working with them, as well as your peers. Next up, the third tip here is to show up as your best self. You see there's a little superhero cape there. So instead of showing up like a teenager, acting bored and focusing on your phone when it's not your turn on the spotlight, and ignoring everybody until it's your turn to get up and talk, which I consider not respecting the process and not acting like an adult, but I'm editorializing. I encourage you to show up as your best self. This is a strategy that really covers a lot, and a lot of people don't bother, but it does matter. So let's talk about it. So the first thing is to look the part. You don't want to show up and have someone not believe that you are who you say you are. And so what this means is, so Lynn's laughing. Let me know if you have a good example. But for example, I knew someone who was a wealth coach, but she consistently came to meetings wearing old, out of style, ill-fitting clothes, didn't keep her hair and nails and makeup and her personal grooming up to snuff. And she looked like she was ready to clean out her garage, not network. And so I asked myself, am I going to refer a high value prospect to her? Because they won't believe it. People believe what they see. And unfortunately, yeah, people can be deceived. It's true. But when you don't look the part, you create the possibility of doubt and mistrust. And so my recommendation is to make the extra effort, look like who you're trying to be. So whatever that is, I'm not saying you have to be dressed up to the nines, but whatever you say you are, look like it, wear the costume. So the second thing, of course, is to be prepared. And what I mean is, so be prepared by knowing how to answer the questions that are going to come your way. So what do you do? What brings you here today? What's new? And you think, that's just small talk. I'm not going to do small talk. No, that is business communication. And what you want to have is you want to have your elevator speech, so you can just tell people what you do without saying, well, it's hard to explain, and blah, 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 blah. And when someone says, what's new, you don't want to say, same old, same old. You want to be excited and enthusiastic about a recent success story from one of your clients or a new program or initiative that you've got going. So like I'm sure Becky is telling people, if anyone asked her what was new on Friday, she would probably say, well, there's so much new, but the one thing that's happening on Tuesday is we're doing a networking for newbies webinar, and you've always got something to talk about. You just have to be ready. And so I'm not saying to brag, and I'm also not saying to monopolize the conversation, but be prepared to introduce yourself, be prepared to introduce other people, be prepared to talk, because that's what you're there for. The third thing is, of course, to pay attention. So again, put down your phone and look at the people who you are with. Pay attention to them, ask them questions, be interested, follow up, and so on. The fourth thing is stay present. And again, by staying present, I mean, really focus on what's happening in the room. And you want to look at the clues and make sure that you're not kind of drifting off or acting bored, because that's a really repellent kind of behavior. And it doesn't make you look very good. And it can also really hurt the feelings of the person who is talking or trying to engage your attention. And finally, be prepared to give before getting. This is, as we talked already, this is not a transaction. This is a relationship. And the more you give, the more you get. Now, I'm not saying that you need to give away all your services for free. You have to rush up to people and just tell them everything that you know. That's not what I mean. I mean that be prepared to ask yourself, be prepared and pay attention to figure out how you can help the people that are in your networking group or that you are with right now. That is a way to really take advantage and to act the part of a good networker. The fourth tip is to wear a name tag. Now, why wear a name tag? Because a name tag is friendly. It makes it clear that you are ready to connect, and it helps people remember who you are. And an unusual one makes you memorable and can be a conversation piece. So, remember not to put too much information. Really your first name is enough, because when it's too hard to read, then the person's going to have to lean over and put their face in your chest. And I don't know how you feel about that, but that's kind of not how I want to start a relationship. So,
especially if you're marketing to tall people and you're small.
Yes.
Then they got to lean over and it looks really awkward.
It is incredibly awkward. So your first name is enough. Your title isn't that important. Your business isn't that important, because I'm assuming all that stuff is on your business card. But yeah. So the reason for a name tag is so people will know you. And as you all know, you're going to wear your name tag on your right shoulder, because you're going to be extending your right hand. Let's see if I can show you when you shake someone's hand. And so if you put your name tag on your left shoulder, because a lot of us, we have our right hand, we're going to hit this right here, put it on our left shoulder. Well, most of us actually pivot away, left shoulder back, right shoulder forward, and right hand forward when we meet someone. And so it's hard for people to see our name. And it's easier for people to remember our names if they see it when we say it. Now, most of us, is anyone here a native Portlander? Or is it just me? Okay, I'm a native Portlander. And I have been told, since I've been in Iowa, that I have a West Coast mush mouth. And I slur my words. And I have known this a long time, because it's true. And I'm beginning to recognize my own West Coast accent. But yeah, we do. So we a lot of times slur our words, and we're used to saying our name so often that people might not catch it. And so instead of saying, I am Ronnie Noize, I'll just go, I'm Ronnie Noize. And they'll be like, what? Is your nose running? I didn't hear what you said. So it says Ronnie on my name tag, and that's all they really need to know. And that way they will remember me a lot better. So use the name that you want to be called. If your name is Becky, or actually your name is Rebecca, but we call you Becky. If your name is Rebecca, but you want to be called Becky, write Becky on your name tag, so you don't have to correct people when and Becky knows this, her name tag says Becky. And so you don't have to correct people when they say, hi, Becky, and she'll be, or hi, Rebecca, she'll say, oh no, it's Becky. And people don't want to be corrected. So you want to give them the current and correct information on your name tag. if you don't do that, people can get confused, and confused people blame you for their confusion. And you don't want to assume an adversarial position the second after you meet someone. Now, did somebody have a question? Did I hear something?
That was a sneeze.
Oh, was a sneeze.
Oh.
Bless you. Whoever. All right, next, let's talk about other networking newbie strategies. Have a professional handshake. You need to pass the sniff test here, baby. So how are you going to act appropriately with your body? Now, and if you're not willing to shake hands, and it's okay. I mean, there are still some people who are fist bumping or elbow bumping. You can also do a namaste, the folded prayer hands, and a bow if you want to. Please don't do this. Ew, don't do that sort of thing, because and it's okay. You can also just shake one hand and cough into it. No, a fake cough.
Oh, okay.
I throw out a good thing to look for doing this handshake correctly is watch the movie Predator, where Arnold Schwarzenegger and Carl Weathers meet and they haven't seen you for a while. That's the perfect handshake, those two guys.
Okay.
So just find that scene, you'll be fine.
Oh, geez.
And it's probably on YouTube. Well, and Lynn is right. I recommend a firm but not crushing handshake with the fingers curled around the other person's hand, just as you see in this little drawing here. Both hands parallel to each other, so nobody's hand is on the top or on the bottom, and not just the fingertips either, unless you're some sort of royalty and you really expect your knuckles to be kissed. I don't know. And again, some people do, like, because it's post-pandemic, they do just like to fist bump or wave. And some people are going to sanitize their hands after touching other people. If that's you, that's perfectly reasonable and okay. But please don't be a jerk about it.
Don't wipe their hands before you shake.
Yeah. Oh,
That'd be bad.
you're killing me, Lynn. That is correct. Don't wipe their hands. But if you're going to wipe your hands, it's okay. Just don't be a jerk about it. Don't be weird. Touch is an important part of connection. And if you do it wrong or do it weirdly, or if you have a strange response, people will become suspicious or offended. So having a good old standard handshake is important and is probably enough. And if you can't do that, just don't be weird, is all I'm saying. And I hope we know what that is. All right. So the next little tip here for networking newbies is to make appropriate eye contact. Now, the truth is that men and women have different ideas about appropriate eye contact. Lynn could tell you stories.
Oh yeah.
But what I want you to do is to make appropriate eye contact and smile. Be approachable, sincere, honest, and interested. Now, most of you ladies know this, but we're not going to do the flirty thing, which is the look away and the coy look back, and then the look away, and then that double tap with the eyeball. Come on, girl, don't. So you just want to look them in the eye, and if you feel weird, especially if you're like an introvert, look at their third eye so that you're not looking directly into their eyeballs. If you kind of look at that third eye, that's right here, that will help you look like you're paying attention, but you won't have that discomfort of eye contact. And it's a really helpful tool, and especially for people who don't like to make eye contact. If you're a guy who's more of an introvert and doesn't like to make eye contact, if you look at the third eye, you look a lot less like a serial killer. And then also, you don't want to stare, guys or girls, because the unblinking stare is weird. And yeah. So eye contact is one of the most powerful and easy ways to make the other person feel seen, understood, and validated. And there's this huge cultural thing here in the US. And I think a lot of US natives don't understand the power of eye contact. But how do you feel? Let me ask you this. How do you feel when you're talking to somebody, but they're always looking over your shoulder? So like you're talking kind of one-on-one, and they're always kind of looking over your shoulder, like they're scanning the room to see if there's somebody more interesting, somebody better that they could be talking to.
I'm used to that when I was dating, but now I just assume they have warrants.
The other thing is for women, when men stare down our shirts instead of looking at our faces. So both of these things, and I think that a lot of times guys aren't really trying to be that weird. It's just that they're kind of looking down and don't know where to look. Guys, look right here, third eye. But someone who's looking over your shoulder is being incredibly rude. And they could just be an extrovert who is looking for their next person to meet and don't realize that they are being rude. So if that's you, I'm just letting you know that it doesn't feel very good when the other person is not paying you the respect of your attention. So one last thing, there is a speaking tip for any of you who are speakers, this, and that is if you want people to remember what you said long after you're done talking, just look them straight in the eye when you say it. And that way people think that you're really talking to them, and it can make quite an impact, which is a really great thing to be doing when you're speaking in a room, you're looking at someone, and it's even better when you can say their name. Oh man. So if you can say their name and make good eye contact, that person will feel seen and heard. And ideally, if it's a positive experience, validated. Now, 7th tip is to have a business card protocol. And so getting, the contact info is one of the key points of most events, because you're not going to be able to get business done at these meetings. Let's be honest. You're just going to sort of meet people, take their temperature, see, who is it going to be profitable to talk to? Who do you want to know better? That sort of thing. So it's important to know how to manage your cards and how to follow up appropriately. Now, remember, treating somebody else's business card as scratch paper can make them feel disrespected and offended. So don't do that. So I have a simple process for live meetings. When I go to meetings, I always wear a jacket. It's kind of my armor, but it makes me feel polished and powerful. It also gives me pockets because I'm not toting around a purse. And so in my right pocket, I have my business card, so I can just pull out a business card with my right hand. And in my left pocket, I have the cards that I've kept. And that way, at the end of the meeting, I can go back to my office and I've got all of the cards of everybody I met, and I can add them to my CRM and take any notes. And I'm not saying I'm adding them to my mailing list, but I have a CRM so that I can keep track of who I met, where, and what I know about them. And this is incredibly handy. I'm not adding them to a mailing list. I'm just trying to keep track of the people I meet, because if I want to have a relationship with them, I want to remember as much as I can about them. And when I'm out there meeting a lot of people, it can be difficult to hang on to that information. So that is my simple business card protocol. There's lots more to say. I could do a whole class on business cards, but I'm not going to right now. I'm just saying, be sure to, since you go to the trouble of having a great business card made, and I had my business card made, I'll just show it to you right here. It is so cool. It's a little square card, and it opens up. It's got cool stuff and stuff on the back, and I can use it as a sign, and people love it and talk about it. And the gal who designed it is here today. It's absolutely fantastic. I need to get a new one since I moved. But even though I love it so much, it is something that I'm willing just to throw out there. So I'm not going to qualify people to give them my business card. If somebody wants to get in touch with me, I'm going to give them a way to do it. And that is my business card. Okay, so let's move along to the next thing. And tip number 8 is know what to say. So even if you're not shy and introverted and you feel like you can talk for hours, you need to prepare your specific messaging for your meetings, so you say things that people are willing to listen to or that are worth hearing. Also, so that you can relax and focus when other people are introducing themselves, instead of wondering how you're going to introduce yourself or what clever thing you can say to get a laugh or get some attention. Because you know the categories before you go to the meeting of the people that you want to meet at the meeting, presumably. So you know what to listen for as they're introducing themselves. So you should be listening. You should, if you're like me, you're taking notes about everybody as they're introducing themselves. But you can't listen and mentally rehearse what you want to say when you introduce yourself when it's your time to talk. You're going to need an answer to the questions such as, what do you do? You're going to need to introduce yourself effectively, and you're going to need a good response to that question I mentioned earlier, what's new? And if you're prepared, you can be fully present and be sure that you're delivering the right messaging in the way that you want it said, instead of afterwards thinking, gosh, I should have said this, or I wish I would have said it this way. So if you're scrambling to come up with something, you're missing opportunity and you're wasting other people's times. So my recommendation is figure out what you're going to need to say and know what it's going to sound like before you get at the meeting. And here's a tip. You don't think in English. Oh, you think you do, but you kind of don't. You speak English. Most of us think in abstract ideas, and many of us have thought out really great things, but when it comes out of our mouths, it doesn't sound right. Has anyone ever had that experience? Yes. Okay, that's right. And it's because you're not really thinking in English, and people will try to argue with me like, no, you read and understand English, and you've got some English words, but you're really thinking conceptually. So it's got to come out of your mouth. And I don't care if you are standing in front of the mirror practicing these things, but you should be able to say them aloud in such a way that they feel comfortable for you and that you know what you're going to say. All right. So next, if you're going to be networking, you're going to need to refer. So have you ever heard of that? The golden rule? Do unto others as you would have done to you. So apply that to networking and you will see that referrals are the essence of that golden rule. Remember that you're not there to sell. That's the transactional error that we talked about before. You're there to create relationships and to support other entrepreneurs. And the best way you can do that is by referring. When you refer, you support more than just the person you're referring to. You also make a fan of the person you refer to that other person. So when I introduce someone to Becky because they're interested in a local networking group, both of them feel good about the referral. Becky appreciates it, of course, and she's great about that. But so does the person I introduce to Becky. That person now thinks better of me and my motivations, and they both kind of feel like they owe me one. I mean, not money or commissions or gifts, but sort of a debt of gratitude for service, which increases trust, which makes both of them more likely to want to refer back to me or to do me a good turn when they can. So it's win, 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 baby. So referring often is, well, because as you know, networking is about connections and support, not just about passing out your card. So be a connector to help others. And if you must have a motivation, consider each introduction that you make or each referral a deposit in your reputation and reciprocity bank. So that is about referring. You know, I want to go back to referring. A lot of people don't know how to refer. They're like, oh, I'm going to tell someone about you. Great. Oh, I told them. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure you did. And that's great. And I appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Blessings, all that stuff. The best way to refer is to introduce people. And if you can't introduce them live, which is a great thing to do. So I would recommend learning how to introduce people live at a meeting at some point. But if you can't do that, the thing you're probably most likely going to do is introduce people by email, not by social media, because that can be awkward. People don't always use it, but email is really specific. And the nice thing is I have an email introduction template. Actually, it's a referral template from you want to refer person A to person B or vice versa. And I will actually give you a copy of that if you want it. It's free. You can just have it. I'll show you in a minute. But the nice thing, though, about referring by email is that both people know that you have referred. And the person that you refer to is like, oh, wow, isn't she nice for thinking that I'm an expert and is referring business to me? And the person you refer to, your friend or colleague, says, wow, isn't this person nice? She's taking care of me. She really heard me when I said I needed to do such and such. That's how you get a really good reputation for being a nice person. Or as I may have mentioned earlier, I'm an introvert. It's really, yeah. The only reason I started networking is because I was well aware of the power and influence of personal referrals and connection, because it was really hard for me, because not only am I shy, but I'm introverted. But I have always wanted to do more than I probably am capable of. So I developed these strategies to make it easier for me personally, and discovered that my strategies work not only for introverts, but for just regular old people who want to network better, of course. This strategy I'm about to share with you, my secret networking strategy, which is one of the foundations of my success at meetings, built my confidence, built my circle of influence and my reputation, and it exposed me to a ton of prospects in a way that I would never have expected. So anybody want to know what the strategy is? Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Well, since you're here, I'll just
What the heck?
What the heck, huh? So the strategy is to act like the host. I looked for other people to make more comfortable. I volunteered to help check in people, which is the best thing for introverts, is you have a job, but it forces you to interact with a ton of people, especially new people. In other words, my strategy is to put the focus on helping other people feel welcome and get them connected, and to make their experience at the networking event better. And that's an amazing thing. It's if you try it, let me know what you think. So before we get to your next steps of my free tools, we've just got a few minutes left here. Let's take a moment to see if there are any unanswered questions on your mind.
You can either unmute yourself or put your question in the chat, and I'm watching.
Okay, good. Thank you, Becky. Well, while you're gathering your thoughts, let's talk about some next steps, and especially about how to apply these strategies. So I recommend you do 3 things. Number 1, and they're all optional, and one of them is free. The first thing is to download my free tools, and I'll show you those tools in just a minute. The second, if you want my help working out your process, I suggest you join the DIY. It's only $19 a month, and I can help you. So let's take a look at the free tools I've gathered for you. So even if you're not a member, you can have these bonuses as my gift. And let me put the link in the chat and explain exactly what you're getting so that you can have it. Oops. There we go. Okay. So the first thing is the instant introduction, which is how to introduce yourself anywhere, anytime, to anyone. This is a thing that has totally and completely saved my bacon, because I haven't always known how to introduce myself. Yuzu, I see that you have a question, and I will be there with you in just a sec. The second thing that I want to suggest here is my killer elevator speech tool, which grabs the attention of your ideal clients, even when they're barely listening. It is a wonderful neurological trick in this introduction. Finally, in this elevator speech, there is my networking rock star introduction, so you can get the full attention of everybody at the meeting when you stand up to introduce yourself. It's amazing. It really works. And finally, I'll give you an entire networking strategy. There's my DIY networking strategy cheat sheet. It's a 1-page guide to help you build your business with networking. And all of these are yours free today. The download link is right here on the screen, as well as in the chat. And please note that it is case sensitive. So all lowercase gets you there. So Yuzu has a question. Can you unmute yourself?
Hi.
Hi.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we
Yeah.
can.
Okay. So one question that I have is, it's been my experience that when I exchange business card with people that I meet in networking, they seem to get a lot of like a newsletters, and obviously my name's is on their mail, like a mail, I guess, like contact list or whatever.
Right.
So I don't do that. I always ask for permission to, if it would be okay to, do you want to know more about my business? I have a new monthly newsletter, but like I do not put people or add people on my list without asking for permission.
Right.
But I'm getting a lot of those newsletters or notice, like, is there a way, I mean, is it rude to just unsubscribe, or if I
Yeah,
giving
thank
the
you for that.
permission?
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I've got a couple other questions here. So but I think I know what you're asking, Yuzo, and I know that is a problem. People think that just because you're networking and you've exchanged cards, that is in itself de facto permission. It is not. There is nothing rude or wrong with unsubscribing from their list. Nothing at all. So just unsubscribe if you're not interested in hearing that. The other, I mean, if you're not interested in hearing from them on a regular basis, the other thing you can do is just toss them all in a folder, all of these newsletters you're getting, in case you want to look at them later. But yes, nothing wrong with unsubscribing, and it is incredibly rude to do that for people. As a matter of fact, yeah. So I see that there's
We have two questions. One is from Nathan.
Yeah.
Steller. Do you have any virtual networking tips, in particular the virtual? And number two, Marcus asked, do you recommend networking with people who seem to have obvious motives, but who may be very well connected?
Okay, so two great questions. Well, let's go with Nathan's question first. Do I have any tips for virtual networking? Yes. The tips for virtual networking are, you need to up your game just a tiny bit, because when you're in a virtual scenario, people don't have as an easy way to, if it's a one-on-one, it can be a lot more difficult for the person to run away. So you want to make sure that you are very prepared, that you know what the agenda is, that you're on time, and you have all of those details worked out. And if you're networking virtually, also make sure that your background isn't weird. I used to be in a networking group with a girl who had her camera in her bedroom, and she sat on her very unmade, messy bed. And she wasn't a clean person, so there were like heaps of clothes and garbage all over the place. And I never wanted to refer to her. I liked her, and I'd seen her work and thought she was good, but I was appalled by what I saw on her screen. And I could not get over it, because
I hope she wasn't a professional organizer.
No, she wasn't. No, she wasn't. But yeah, so you want to make sure that you're just as careful with how you show up virtually as you are in real life. And Nathan, I'm sorry, that's probably not a very specific a couple of tips, but that's the best I can do at this moment. Now I want to talk about Marcus's question. Do I recommend networking with people who seem to have obvious motives, but I know they have connections? Well, that's your motivation, isn't it, to get access to their connections? So it's okay to network with whomever you choose, but I would recommend, if someone seems to have a lot of motives, like if you're thinking that they're really trying to sell you, but you want access to their connections, then why not just be fully transparent and let them know, hey, I'd like to get together and see if we can help each other mutually, not to sell to each other, but to see what we can do in terms of referrals. If that works for you, let's set up a time. So, I mean, maybe that's not the exact script, but something along those lines, I think, would be extremely helpful.
Marcus said brilliant.
Oh, okay.
Thank you. Yeah, that was great. Great.
All righty, my friends. So so I've given you the link already for some the free tools, but before we go, and also here's a little information on my special offer. Before we go, I'd like to hear from a couple of folks. We heard, we covered a lot. I mean, I just gave you a lot of information. And some of this stuff you probably knew, but there may have been some new stuff too. So my question to you is, what was the most useful idea we talked about today? Does anybody want to share?
It takes them a minute to.
I'll share.
Oh, go ahead.
Thanks, Tammy.
So, Ronnie, I think my best takeaway from this is that when you're at a networking event, to act as the host and ask how you can, help distribute cards if need be, or help the host in any way you can. That's the biggest, the thing that stood out to me, because I tend to be one. I like to help like you do. I like to help, but I also and by me helping, it's better for me all around.
It is, absolutely. It's a win-win. I love that. Thank you, Tammy.
And I just wanted to mention, Jeff said, Ronnie's awesome. If you really want to up your game, join her DIY marketing center.
Thank you, Jeff. I really appreciate that. And thank you, Becky. So any other, oh, I see Hollywood Joe's got a question.
Yes, that's
Oh,
just
there-
a comment like Tammy. I like the takeaway of act like a host. Something I did that helped me early on in my networking days, because like you, I'm a very big introvert. So I became part of the Chamber of Commerce ambassador program. So basically when people came in, new people, I would talk to them and introduce them to other people. That really helped me to connect as well.
Yeah, nice. So smart. Thank you. And Emily, it looks like you have a question.
Hi, everybody. I actually just wanted to add something. I was at a networking event last week, and somebody had taken a selfie with me, asked me if they could take a selfie, and I thought that that was very clever, so you could remember their face as well.
It is
Okay.
very clever. Love that. Thank you for sharing, Emily. And Marcus, you have your hand up. Did you have a comment or a question?
I wanted to respond to your question about what was one of the most helpful things.
Okay.
The secret strategy to help people that look uncomfortable. That, oh my God, that's amazing, because you know, I think all of us know how that feels. And if
Some
you
of
can
us.
recognize that person or those people in a room and go and help them, I bet I'm just imagining that goes a long way. So you dropped a gem on me with that one. Thank you.
Yay.
One of the
you're
best things to do, absolutely.
You are welcome. Well, Becky, I think I've said everything I need to say today.
You have.
Sharing, and I know that you probably have a couple of comments before we wrap it up.
Well, Ronnie, you're a rock star. I absolutely adore you and love all the help that you've given us and all of our members. So I appreciate you so much. Thank you so much. And I'm glad we had a nice big group today. We had several that couldn't make it. I said there would be a recording. I promised there will be a recording that will be going out. And what do you want me to, when I email, I can email everybody the information. So what do you want me to send to their way?
Oh, just as long as everybody has the link to get the downloads,
Downloads?
yeah.
Okay, as well as the information, the DIYmarketingcenter.com, in case they'd like to
Yes,
sign up for that
absolutely.
as well.
The
Absolutely.
downloads have some good stuff in them, like the elevator speech, believe it or not. Ronnie is really good at dialing in elevator speeches. And I actually gave an elevator speech on an elevator once, only once in my career, but it worked.
It's nice to be prepared, huh?
I had a random guy turn to me and said, "What do you do?" And he joined I Take the Lead.
Oh,
That's
that's
the
funny.
stuff, Lynn. That's it. All right, my friend.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Ronnie.
Thank you, Becky. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Especially thank you for my friends and clients and colleagues. Happy to see all of you. It's just great. Thank you.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate your support.
Okay. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.